Okay, welcome back to Hindustan Astrology. We have another episode with Dr. Santhip, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the moon through the Nakshatras and some more in-depth esoteric meanings to them. So thank you back, Santhip.
Yeah, thank you, Katya, again for inviting me to your channel. I'm always glad to share some more new insights. Now moon here today. I really wanted to talk about how you can actually to continue on the series like what we did further with the sun. So in last lecture, I kind of like shared how you can view or understand deeper aspects of sun through the nakshatras linked with the sun. We looked at the sun ruled nakshatras, the nakshatras falling in Leo sign. We looked at the other nakshatras where sun was getting exalted, Molatrikon, debilitation, where those kind of activities of sun was happening. So we're going to continue the same kind of analysis for the moon as well, so that you begin to understand the deeper quality of moon. And now moon, of course, it's very interesting, Katya. Again, I pay a lot of attention to omens. So it's very interesting that we were talking a lot about family history. We are talking about a lot about families in general, also in mother figures in our life. Also a lot of deep secrets as well. There's a lot of moon is the queen of the night, right? Moon is the planet that the graha that is always present when you're out in the nighttime. Especially, of course, in some daytime you also see the moon setting and rising. That's also a different matter. But then biggest thing I have to say is that moon rules night, and definitely nakshatras is intricately linked with the moon, because nakshatra divisions is basically based on the distance traversed by the moon as well. So moon is a very important graha if you want to study nakshatras in general. So I've seen that many times. If you have moon in 8th house, moon on your lagna, moon association with the 8th house, you will be very good at nakshatra kind of astrology. So that's a very straightforward thing. Any kind of association with moon in general. Even if you're a Cancer ascendant person, you will be very intuitive and you can immediately connect with the nakshatra very, very quickly. I've seen that. Now, let's see. So I'll actually begin to share my screen, and I'll kind of share my presentation as well. Let's see. Okay, it should begin to come forth now. Okay, so I wanted to start off by talking about Krishna, because moon is exalted in Krishna's chart. So what is interesting about Sri Krishna's chart is the 9th avatar of Vishnu, which is the closest avatar that has happened, as far as the history of the yugas are concerned. You find that what is interesting about Krishna's avatar is that, each of the avatars of Vishnu is actually connected with a graha, with each of the 9 planets. And you find that the avatar of Vishnu, or the avatar of Krishna, is actually the avatar that is connected with moon. And surprisingly, well, not surprisingly really, you really find that in Krishna's chart, moon is exalted. So moon is very, very prominent in Krishna's chart, since he has moon and Rohini nakshatra. And usually you find that, usually you also find, if you understand Krishna's life story, then if you have a placement in Rohini nakshatra, then there's a good chance that you will also begin to understand your life story as well, So it's a big thing there, because there's a lot of themes there. And of course, you can break down or understand his life story from his chart also, But this is the first thing I wanted to start off just by sharing that, if you begin to look into moon and that kind of path of astrology, then it's always helpful to start off by looking into Krishna's life and studying more about Krishna and so on. That kind of thing is very, very strong. Now let's see. Now we'll go to the next slide. And here I was just showing the sign that is ruled by moon. Here I have the South Indian chart, but I have kind of added in additional kind of nakshatra kind of definitions within the South Indian chart on the top also. Well, I tried my best with the North Indian chart below. That's why It's got a weird shape, but that's fine. But moon rules actually Cancer. It's very interesting because Cancer is the sign of the crab. It has a hard shell, but it's soft inside. So, people who have a very prominent Cancer in their chart, definitely they are like a crab, They have this hard shell outside, but they have a very soft inside thing going on. And of course, that's the Cancer is also the natural fourth house of the zodiac, the home, the mother, the family of your life, and so on. So that's a very strong thing there with Cancer and Moon. And of course, Moon is the mother signification in our chart. And the way we have the way the karma with the mother is probably seen very strongly with our moon placement as well. And then usually, sometimes it can be great karma, sometimes it can be not so great karma. But in many times, you can see that there was a big emotional impact which you have had from your mother, or mother figures in your life as well. So that's very important to understand also, now here I'm trying to show the moon rule nakshatras here. So moon rule nakshatras here I kind of highlighted here. The Rohini nakshatra falling in Taurus sign, the Hasta nakshatra falling in Virgo sign, and finally Shravan nakshatra falling in Shravan nakshatra falling in Capricorn sign. Those are the three nakshatras. Now, what is very interesting about these three nakshatras is that if you look at the deities connected with this particular these nakshatras, you find that Moon is actually the ruler for these three nakshatras, but the deity of Rohini is actually Prajapati or Brahma. So you have Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh as the trinity amongst the Hindu pantheon. And Brahma is the one who supposedly created the entire world or the entire universe. So that's a big theme there. And you find that same creative element very strong in Rohini Nakshatra. So again, Rohini Nakshatra placement, natives are extremely creative. They are able to create literally entire universes. These natives can create all the way from companies to institutions, books, artists. These are they're carrying a lot of creative energies very strongly there. What is interesting with Savitur, the next nakshatra of Hasta, is that the Hasta is actually having the deity of Savitur, and Savitur is the god that is linked with golden hands. So what is interesting with golden hands is that you find that placements with Hasta is actually people who are linked with some kind of service in general. So you'll find that someone who is actually being of service to the world, and you'll find many times social service people who are in the healing work. They do some kind of service with their hands. And that's very strong influence there. And finally, in the Vamana deity, which is linked with Shravana, Vamana is actually another avatar of Vishnu, in which he was a dwarf child who expanded in his stature and became a giant. So he approached the demon king Mahabali, who was doing a fire sacrifice to conquer the entire world. And Vamana asked for 3 steps of land. And it said that Mahabali thought, okay, this was a dwarf child. Why should I be worried about? This was a dwarf Brahmin. So I should definitely pay attention to him and offer him 3 steps of land. And then the dwarf Brahmin, once he got the yes from Mahabali, he just expanded in size. He became a giant. And the first step he took was over the entire heaven and earth. And the second step was over the entire hell region. And then there was no more place to keep the next step. So, and then the Vamana avatar is supposed to ask the demon king, where do I place my 3rd step? You promised me 3 steps of land. Now there is no place for me to keep the 3rd step. And the demon king supposedly surrendered himself. He said, okay, you can place your 3rd step upon my own head. But now he was humbled. Now he realized, and this was Vishnu in disguise and all that. He realized I'm dealing with Vishnu, so, I might as well get the blessing. Things like that. So that's one very important story there with Shravana, and what is interesting, the point here is that, placement with Shravana can make definitely one travel a lot because of this themes with steps, and then these are natives who love hiking, who love to travel a lot, they definitely would, what's very interesting with Shravana again, is that they would expand in their stature. That's one thing which I've seen very commonly. So at some point, I've seen that they might become, they might start off as simple people, they might start off a company and then suddenly the company takes off, or they might start off as simple authors and then suddenly their enterprises take off. So on the easiest example that is coming to my mind is that of David Foley. So David Foley was someone who had to travel to India. He wrote a lot of books, but once he started to write the books and stuff like that, it just took off in a big way. He brought back Ayurvedic knowledge and stuff like that. That kind of thing was very, very strong. But what is interesting is that if you carefully look at the deities, now you think about the moon now. Moon is actually the mother, right? And you find these functions of these particular deities are also linked with your mother. So Prajapati is the one who gave birth to the entire universe. So your mother gave birth to you. That Rohini Nakshatra natives, you find that many times they have pretty strong karma with giving birth as well. Many times they say, an astrologer says in India says that usually if a woman has Rohini Nakshatra, it's great for her to have babies. The more babies she has, much better. So that's one great thing I've seen. The second thing with Hasta is that you find the serving aspect of mother. The mother is actually serving or taking care of a child. So she's always there helping out for the child, that kind of thing. A mother who's serving the child, right? So that's a very strong thing there. And Vamana is very interesting because it's the energy of expansion also, actually, because it's the energy of expansion. So it's almost like you can think about how the child taking care of the mother is actually expanding, growing, to be frank. So that's a very strong, but of course, when the child is small, then the mother has to basically run around the child also, the child is running around. So that's also the aspect of Vamana, of 3 steps of Vamana. That's one thing you can say. But it's kind of, now you're beginning to understand that these nakshatras actually can point to some energies that are present in the moon as a graha, some energies that are even expressed by moon as a graha also. So that is one simple thing here with the moon rule nakshatras and their rashis as well, Now going to the next one, if you look at the nakshatras that are falling in Cancer sign, you find Punavasu nakshatra, Pushya and Ashlesha. Now it's very interesting. Again, before this recording, we kind of started talking about, Ashlesha. So Ashlesha is actually the nakshatra that is linked with Nagas and snakes. So I was just telling Katya that if you have any planets in Ashlesha, then there is a good chance that you might have had some kind of karma with a snake. So it could be that you had a blessing of a snake. It could be that a snake was killed if it was a malefic planet or something like that. And usually dreams of snake, that can also become very, very strong with Ashlesha. But Ashlesha is really connected with the coiling and the coiling of the snake. So it's like the mother that is hugging the child and taking care of the child. It's kind of showing it the protective nature of the mother, really. That's what Ashlesha is all about. Now, Pushya, we're going in reverse order here. So Pushya is actually connected with the symbol of the cow, So it's having the udder of the cow as the symbol. Now, Ashlesha is having the snake as the symbol. The deity of Ashlesha is actually the Nagas, who actually balance the 5 tattvas. The 5 elements are balanced by the Nagas. And you find that as a deity, that's their role. So mother definitely brings balance into our lives, And then you have Pushya, where it's the nourishing aspect of mother, the mother who is feeding you, mother who is always cooking food for you and things like that. So that is very strong with Pushya in general. So Pushya is a nakshatra that is having the god of Brihaspati. And Brihaspati is actually the guru amongst the gods. So they say that, your mother is your first teacher. And it's kind of important to really respect your mother as a teacher's role before you go even to a teacher. So in fact, even before God, you're supposed to honor your mother first, and then you go to your teacher, and then you go to the God. That's the sequence they say. Mother, father, God, mother, father, teacher, and then the God. That's the sequence you would go to. Now, what is interesting with Pushya is that it shows that energy of the mother or the moon, where you are being nourished, and not only nourished emotionally, you're also being nourished with your primary kind of knowledge of character, primary kind of knowledge of like how the world works, simple. Yeah, exactly that. So you begin at your home. Now it's very interesting also, the attitudes a student has towards his mother and his father, the same attitude towards his parents, is exactly what happens towards his teacher as well. Well, that's very interesting. So how you are in your household is exactly how you will be in your school. It's as straightforward as that. And you'll begin to see that. And Pushya Nakshatra is actually the basis for that, because Brihaspati is the actual deity for it, deity connected with Pushya. And finally, what is interesting is that Punarvasu Pada 4 is, the last Pada of Punarvasu is falling in Cancer. So Punarvasu is actually very interesting because it's the nakshatra of repetition. So think about how many times your mother might have said the same thing to you again and again, right? So, yeah. So that's the aspect of that. So now again, here it's a very important theme to recognize that it's kind of showing that moon is also having a function of repetition as a quality. You'll find that moon is always rising, moon is always, setting, it's waxing, it's waning. So there are those kind of qualities of repetition. So there's an interesting aspect with Punarvasu here as well, because Punarvasu is actually linked with the nakshatra of the avatar of Vishnu, Lord Ram, who is actually linked with Sun. So you find that at this particular placement, if you start to look at Lord Ram's chart, right? So you find that he's supposed to have had a Punarvasu Lagna or a Cancer Lagna, So it's very interesting because of that, and
that's
so
the
you can see
Krishna too.
Yeah, well, yeah, Krishna is kind of interesting because moon is exalted, but in Lord Ram's chart, Sun is supposed to have been exalted, but then he's supposed to have
the Krishna mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare
yeah,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
yeah,
Hare Ram,
yeah,
Hare Ram,
yeah. So if it's very interesting again that mantra is having both Krishna's energy and Ram's energy as well. So Lord Ram's energy is actually present even in Krishna's energy, you could say indirectly. But then that energetic presence or linkage is happening.
What is moon but a reflection of the sun?
Exactly that. So you find that kind of connection is coming on account of Punarvasu Nakshatra falling on in Cancer sign. So that's very important. Cancer, this Punarvasu moon is supposed to have been the actual moon of Lord Ram. And then you find that, so Lord Ram definitely had a comfortable moon. The moon was in Cancer for him. Whereas Lord Krishna had an exalted moon. Moon was in Taurus for him. So that's a very subtle kind of thing. And because the moon is the reflection of the sun, and that's exactly what you see. And
that's
you have to
beautiful saying that the sun died every day so that the moon could live every night.
Yeah, exactly that, right? So there's a lot of link happening there. There's a deep link between sun and the moon. There are a lot of deep secrets around sun and the moon. Perhaps I think probably our ancestors worshipped both sun and the moon in many ways because that was very powerful influences for them. And but here it's very subtle aspect to see how the nakshatra energies are playing out even in the moon. Even with your moon as a graha. Here I'm kind of finally taking it to the next level of analysis where first I'm taking you to the nakshatra where moon is actually having its Mula Trikona. So moon is supposed to have its home base here in Kritika and Rohini nakshatra, especially in Taurus sign and Mrgashira as well. So you find that aspect here. So when moon is placed here in Mrgashira, Rohini and Kritika, you find that moon is in its Mula Trikona portion, or moon is at its home base. Now again, these three nakshatras, it's supposed to, of course, moon is exalted exactly in Kritika Pada 1, Kritika Pada 2, falling in Taurus. But then you find that in Taurus sign, which is an earth sign, so moon feels very grounded. So it's usually the explanation that is given by most of the astrologers here is that the emotions of the moon gets a lot of grounding in Taurus, since it's an earth sign. It's also the first earth sign coming in the zodiac. So but what is interesting at the nakshatra level is that Rohini is a creative nakshatra. Mrgashira is actually having the deity of Soma. Soma is actually the moon god himself. So,
right.
So moon is definitely comfortable in Mrgashira nakshatras as well. So that's very interesting, and Now, there are certain nakshatras, very few nakshatras where some planets themselves become the deities. So one of them is actually Mrigashira, which is linked with Soma, the moon god. The other is actually Pushya, which we talked about, where Brihaspati, the Jupiter planet, becomes the deity there. So that's very special nakshatra cases there. There's some deep thing going on there. At some point, research will have to be carried out. But here, for our discussion, understanding this particular link between Mrigashira and Rohini and Kritika as well, in connection with the moon, is very, very helpful. Now, moon actually gets exalted in Kritika Pada 2, So at 3 degrees of Kritika is where moon is actually getting exalted. And exactly in 3 degrees of Scorpio is where moon is getting debilitated in Vishaka Pada 4. So it's like, it's very, again, if you begin to think about Vishaka, Kritika, the deity of Kritika is actually fire, the Agni, the fire god. So you find that there is a lot of brightness that is happening here in Kritika. A planet, if you have a planet placed in Kritika, that particular person in your life will be very strong, a strong personality. So that's how that person will be very bright. Now, if you have a planet placed in Vishaka Pada 4, you'll find that Vishaka it's almost like having two gods at the same time. You have Indra and Agni. So the deity of Vishaka is actually Indra Agni. So what you find here is that with Vishaka, usually what happens, especially moon, even though it's in a water sign, Vishaka kind of nakshatra is kind of splitting that mind of brain. That's mind of the moon. So usually there is a split personality kind of thing going on. Now it's great if you are kind of very strongly focused upon one particular aspect as a character, then then your mind is very strong. But say your mind is always split, then it's having its own. It's not
like
great.
So, it's an obsession.
Yeah, exactly that. Now it's very interesting because moon is getting debilitated in Scorpio. It's having a Scorpio is definitely this sharp emotional transformation which you go through, and moon is definitely not comfortable there in Scorpio. But then what is interesting aspect? What is a really interesting aspect about this particular Vishaka Pada 4 is that you find that in Navamsha placement of this particular Pada will always be in Cancer. So it's almost as if that, it's just a matter of time, really. So sure, you might have a debilitated moon. Perhaps you might even have a moon placed at 3 degrees of Scorpio also, which is considered to be debilitated. But over a period of time, you're sort of guaranteed that, you will overcome it as your Navamsha becomes stronger as you age, so especially during your moon periods and so on. Right. So that's very, very important, and definitely Indra Agni is actually the deity that has to be pacified or that has to be awakened to remove that debilitation also. So Indra Agni is actually connected with fire sacrifices and things like that. So say you're doing something like the Agnihotra, or you are lighting a lamp even, that kind of thing is actually nullifying the effects of debilitation that is linked with the moon's placement.
And also, once they meet their spouse, I mean, the Navamsha is the spouse, and it's the second half of life, right? So once they get over 40 and once they meet their spouse's chart is going to kind of help them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Of course, you'll find that very strongly. The spouse's chart is helping you out. That's why they are a spouse in the first place. Is one thing you'll see. So especially with moon's placement also, you usually with relationships, usually there is a strong link with the moons, especially in the Rashi chart or even in the Navamsha chart as well. I've seen both playing out. So that's one. So here it's very important to understand again, how these nakshatras and the deities can actually play out with this energies of the moon. Now I wanted to take this kind of understand the energetic aspect of these particular nakshatras in a different way. There are a lot of rituals that can be done. There are some aspects, some simple what used to be common sense knowledge, which can be actually derived from these particular nakshatras as well. Now, so let me just, of course, the houses of the natural zodiac that is linked with these particular signs is the second house, and the eighth house. So, of course, you'll find these particular houses being important with respect to moon as well. Now, now the final thing I would even say is that, moon is, of course, as the fourth lord as well. That's a different aspect. Now, Now, what is very important, one very important aspect in the astrological analysis is actually using the Chandra Lagna as well. So, so moon definitely is an alternative ascendant, which you have to analyze a chart from. If there is an event that is actually promised from moon as the ascendant, then that can actually happen, so that's a very important aspect. So I just wanted to mention that as well, very briefly here. So look at what is happening with regard to your moon ascendant, your Chandra Lagna as your chart, and then see if things are promised from that particular aspect as well. Many times you will see events are happening both from the Rashi Lagna as well as your Chandra Lagna, and then there's good likelihood of that particular event to happen.
Right. Well, and it's the shadow. That's the thing. I've always discovered that the Chandra Lagna will just show you the shadow side that you probably did not see in the Rashi chart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the shadow of the moon,
Definitely. Definitely the shadow of the moon aspect, there's definitely that aspect. I would even say that, we have to remember Vimshotri dashas are also actually calculated from the moon's position in the chart. So it's very, very important to use the Vimshotri dasha and analyze those particular planets from the Chandra Lagna because of that as well. That also makes a very important impact from what I've seen. But here, let's see. Now, okay, here's the thing. Let's see. So let me ask you a question here, Katya. What do you think second house is actually connected with in general? What are the themes of the second house? So Katya, yeah, it's a question to you. What is second house linked with,
Well, second house is Taurus. It's like the early part of life, but kind of like the toddler years, but it's your blood. And that's what I've discovered is that, fourth house is your mom, it's your home, but second house is more your blood. It's your blood relatives.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. That's great. What about like let's say what part of your body is second house linked with? What else can you?
Well, it's the mouth. It's the throat.
Right. So second house is also linked with mouth and throat, right? So one thing you could say is that second house is also linked with the jewelry that you wear. That's the easiest thing, with the jewelry that you wear.
Jewelry. Yes.
Yeah, the jewelry. So it's like a very interesting thing. So here I want to highlight that. Yeah, exactly. Venus, right? So you have Venus being the second house, so you find jewelry.
It's interesting, Venus and Moon are in different planetary camps, but yet they have an affinity for each other.
Yep, exactly that. So here, what I'm kind of trying to show here is that, now they say that mystically, the amount of the real wealth in your life is actually linked with the amount of gold that you actually possess. It's a mystical thing. So, usually gold it's like,
that's the same in Chinese astrology. If you want to bring more gold into your life, you wear gold.
Exactly that. So you wear gold, So it's like, it's very interesting here. You find that gold and silver, there's a reason why gold.
Yeah.
Exactly that. So silver is actually linked with the moon, So here it's an interesting thing which I read in an advice from a guru for householders, right? This guru was basically saying, the mother in the house is actually linked with Shakti or the energy, and then when the queen of the home is secure, provided for with gold, jewels, and clothes. So gold hanging down until the ears hurt. That's how that guru was describing. And then the mother of the house can actually release Shakti, power to bring in wealth. And this is an actual interesting thing, in the sense that you don't think of it immediately, but if the mother in the house, the female energy, the feminine energy in the house is actually decorated with gold, especially in the hanging down from the ears, right? The second house is filled with gold energy or with silver energy. Then there's a lot more other positive energies coming into the house. So that's the actual astrological explanation. There's an actual astrological explanation or links you can find from this particular statement.
And that's why Indian women have lots of gold jewelry.
Exactly that. Yeah.
The abundance and the wealth to the family. And we have a saying over here in America, and that's when mama's happy, everybody's happy. When mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy.
Yeah, exactly that. So exactly that, So again, you can see that from this chart again, you can see the influence of moon being exalted, the second house of the natural zodiac. If the mother is happy, everyone is happy, right? So if the mother is happy, you get food, Now, what's interesting here, again, I can say for sure is that if you have a wife, just try this out. I can definitely recommend, try to make her wear jewelry in the house, make her that, try that, see what happens.
It works. I tell my husband, he always asks me what I want for Christmas, for my birthday. I'm like, I just want jewelry. Like I have everything else is taken care of. I want jewelry because I know that's going to increase good energy and it's going to attract abundance to the house.
Yep, definitely. So that's a very direct aspect of Rohini, Mrigashira, Kritika Nakshatra being linked with the moon, falling in the second house of the zodiac. It's very, very important. You don't think about it immediately, but once you begin to start to see the nakshatras connection with the moon, with the grahas, immediately that begins to make sense eventually. Now here is a different kind of thing. Of course, so I was just saying women's jewelry augment her natural Shakti and makes her husband more successful. So that's why that guru was basically giving this particular advice. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a final slide, for the presentation. But here I wanted to kind of describe what is called as a wealth ritual. A wealth ritual that will kind of promise or ensure wealth for the rest of your future lives. So I came across this, from a spiritual master, and what he said. This is the steps in it. So the steps, the first step is, of course, you plant a tree in the ground, outside in the earth. So you don't, not in a pot, you get a tree that will grow tall and strong. So you want something like an oak tree or something like that, that'll become tall and strong. Then you can, of course, when you put that tree over the ground, here, and I just added one optional kind of suggestion. You can make a yantra of the moon on top of the ground, and you put that on the ground, and then you put the plant with the roots there, in the hole in the ground, and then you place 1 to 2 pounds of coins around the roots of the tree in the hole.
Wow.
Yeah. So you put some, you can put 1 to 2 pounds. It doesn't mean, it can be dimes, nickels, it doesn't matter. Now in some cases you can put copper. You can even put silver coins. You can even put gold coins, to be frank. So you put the 1 to 2 pounds of coins around the roots of the tree in the hole. So you just put that, you scatter them around also. And then now you try to cover the hole, right? Now you place your hand on soil around the tree, visualize the amount of wealth very strongly. So you have to see that wealth very strongly as you hold, again, you're holding the hands on the soil, very, very important. And then you're supposed to laugh or cry or connect with the earth around the tree emotionally strong. So first you visualize the wealth, then you form that very strong emotional connection by either laughing out loud or crying your heart out. So at that point, that emotional connection has been formed between you and the tree. And then you say a prayer, any prayer 3 times touching the tree. So you can say any good prayers, any prayers that you like, any mantra that you are chanting regularly, that kind of thing you can say 3 times touching the tree. And then finally you say a prayer to the water, you bless that water, and that's the first water that you're pouring to this particular tree. So the first water that is poured to a tree, if you have done these initial steps prior, you'll actually form a very strong emotional bond with that tree. So that wealth energy of yourself is actually linked with the energy of that tree. Now, as long as the tree is growing, your wealth will also grow correspondingly. And if that tree is never cut, then that wealth stays in the family, and the next generation begins to experience that. So that's an actual interesting remedy, that I came across. Now, let me, from the astrological angle, let me ask you this question, Katya. Which nakshatra do you think could be associated with this particular ritual?
Oh gosh. Well, let's see. Out of the moon ones, or out of all of them?
Well, the nakshatras we discussed so far.
Okay, I would say it would be Hasta.
Well, definitely Hasta, I can.
Because we were talking about the sun and working with the hands.
Yeah, Hasta definitely is having an element here. So let me narrow it down for you.
Arstu, though, is Jupiter, and that's, luck and fortune. So that could be
right. That's true. There's a small Punvasu angle here. But so after the remaining two moon ruled nakshatras, which nakshatra is more likely to have a connection here? So you have Shravana and Rohini. So which nakshatra among these two?
Probably Rohini, right?
Right, yeah. So why Rohini though? Why Rohini? Because Rohini...
She's the favorite, right? She's the favorite wife of Chandra.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. So here what's interesting is that Rohini is actually the nakshatra that is promising growth in general. So an entire universe is created for you. So, here by that Prajapati as a deity. So, you can see that Rohini nakshatra is an actual, is actually carrying this energy of this wealth tree. It can actually grow wealth into your life. But, what is actually happening is, remember, Rohini is also in the earth sign. So you have this growth happening in the earth, and that's what you're doing here. You are actually growing a plant, and again, if you grow plants in general, you can see that can also give rise to wealth. But if you do this ritual further, you're actually increasing the link of your energies. You're tying your energies with the plant, with these rituals before you plant coins around it.
The Pleiades rules Rohini, and so many cultures across the planet, their mythology says that they came from the Pleiades,
Right. So Pleiades is actually
our moon. We have one moon. That's what people need to realize, is that our astrology is based on one moon. Imagine if we lived on Jupiter and we had over 100 moons. Can you imagine how confusing it would be to base your astrology on over 100 moons? We are so lucky we have just one.
yeah, for sure. Let me just slightly correct you there. I would say Pleiades is linked with Kritika, but Aldebaran, the star of the bull, is linked with strongly with Rohini. It's a red star, but Kritika, the thing that
Aldebaran is Mrigashira.
Yeah. Okay. So my bad. So important thing though is that I would say Kritika. Well, what's interesting now. Even Kritika is associated with this particular ritual. Yeah. Kritika is actually the spear, the knife, right? So you first have to dig a hole into the ground, the plant to grow. The plant is actually Rohini that is grown, and the rest of the moon nakshatras is actually emotional bond that you're forming. The coin is actually, in ancient times, you would have placed 1 to 2 pounds of silver coins, around in the tree. So that is actually moon or Rohini, that is actually planted along with the plant, and then Mrigashira is, of course, the emotional connection you're doing with the hands.
Right. I'm sorry. Aldebaran is Rohini. Yes, I mixed that up. Yeah, Aldebaran is Rohini, and Kritika is Pleiades. But that's the thing. When you're looking at them, they're right in a line, and you can see
exactly that.
all the myths from Taurus to Gemini, all the way. Sirius, Orion, Aldebaran, Pleiades.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Feed into each other.
Yeah, definitely. Pleiades is holding a lot of secrets there. And remember, Kritika is the nakshatra where moon is actually getting exalted as well. So there's a lot of things happening there, So let's see. So, yeah. So I think, that's the end of my presentation, Katya. But, here I wanted to kind of summarize it up and just kind of again, remind what we have done so far. We have tried to connect the energies of the moon, specifically through the lens of the nakshatras that you could link with it. We have looked at the nakshatras of ruled by the moon. We looked at Rohini, we looked at Hasta, we looked at Shravana. We looked at the nakshatras falling in Cancer sign, which is actually Punavasu, Pushya, and Ashlesha. And then we looked at the nakshatra of, Rohini and Mrigashira, the Multrikon nakshatras. We looked at the exaltation nakshatra of Kritika, and finally the debilitation nakshatra of Vishaka. to actually understand moon's energy in different aspects, you know. So, and then finally I kind of showed certain rituals or mystical kind of things, which is normally, which is almost all rituals or mystical suggestions given by gurus are carrying astrological connotations, almost all of them. If you actually begin to connect them together, you'll begin to see a lot of things like that, you know. So yeah, Katya. So that's what I have. Any questions so far? Anything like that?
Yes, I have a question. And that is because moon is exalted in Taurus and is associated with Lord Krishna, who had his moon in Taurus. Let's just briefly talk about Abhijit, because that's the 28th, silent nakshatra. And that's supposed to be associated with Krishna, right? So would that have like some kind of mystical association with the moon?
Yeah, you are right. Because Abhijit Nakshatra is actually falling in the last quarter of last pada of Uttarashada Nakshatra, and then it's actually going further into 1/15th of Shravana Nakshatra. So Shravana Nakshatra is actually carrying 1/15th portion of Abhijit Nakshatra. Okay. The story goes that any event you begin in Abhijit Nakshatra, you won't be defeated. So like that's what the leader amongst the Kauravas, Duryodhana, approached the Pandava prince Nakula or Sahadeva, I'm not sure who, one of them, supposed to be a very famous astrologer himself, and asked, when do I begin the battle so that I can defeat your brothers? And then an astrologer is supposed to give an answer no matter who it is, and then he actually said the right answer. And Krishna was, the story goes that, Duryodhana actually began the war at, around this time period of Abhijit. But then what happened was that Krishna mystically interfered, and he literally blew up the Abhijit star in the sky. So it's like the Abhijit star was no longer present at that particular moment to give the blessings. And Duryodhana sure did start in the Abhijit Nakshatra time period. Abhijit Nakshatra was rising, so on, but that blessing didn't come forth because Krishna blew up the star. So it's a very interesting thing with Abhijit, and Abhijit is having a lot of deep mysteries there with Abhijit, because the name itself of Abhijit translates as Abhi and Jeet. Abhi translates as now, Jeet means victory. So victory in the now, so that's literally that. So there's a lot of deep things going on there. In fact, Abhijit Muhurta is a very special Muhurta in the day and in the night time. You doing anything in Abhijit Muhurta, again, you're supposed to be victorious because of that, this particular placement. But then Nakshatra actually is, it's called as an intercalary Nakshatra, a Nakshatra that is kind of used for timing and stuff like that. It's not having a real existence as of now. But then many astrologers still use it. You find this in Avatara system, which is a 27 nakshatra system. There is also a corresponding 28 nakshatra system in which they include Abhijit in the analysis as well. So it depends upon how you use it and stuff like that. Also, I've seen you get good results from both, depending upon the astrologer you're talking to. So Abhijit nakshatra is actually having a link with moon, and this is the mythological link with Krishna is the one which I mentioned. Krishna actually blew up the star when that battle was about to begin. So that star's energy really couldn't help, Kauravas to be victorious in the Mahabharata war. Yeah.
I know that Vega is associated with Uttara Ashada, but Vega is also, the star is associated with Abhijit too, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Vega is a very strong star. Vega is the star associated with Abhijit. In fact, what is interesting is that not many people realize, but Capricorn
came from there. He came from Vega. And
yeah,
well, qualities, the leader, the authoritarian, but also is going to bring change.
Yeah, Vega is a very important star connected with battles, victory, and stuff like that. I'm not sure where Krishna came from, but I would think, to be frank, though, Vega is having a lot of other. It's a very important star in other mystical kind of sects. From what I've seen. In fact, there are this. You find this rituals around Capricorn. as a sign. Capricorn is supposed to be a sign which is actually great for improving a family in general. So you find a lot of
there's no success without Ganesha's blessing. So
exactly that. Yeah. So Capricorn is you find with Capricorn, the entire sign of Capricorn, is carrying a lot of energetic thing. In fact, it's very interesting with Shravana. You find this 3 steps. The Altair kind of constellation is connected with Shravana, and you find that it's connected with 3 steps. And there is this thing called as there is this concept called as the Jacob's ladder in general. So Jacob's ladder is actually the steps which Jacob apparently took to reach God or something like that.
Heaven.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But what is interesting with that is that Jacob's ladder is actually close around Vega. Vega is nearby, and an Altair is also nearby.
It's
and
also
then
associated with DNA, and that's
yeah.
Jacob's ladder is associated with the DNA. So our original DNA came from that part of the
should be differently. There's a lot of mystery there. I can definitely say that there's a lot of now Jacob's ladder was basically like a hint. It was kind of hinting there's a lot more mysteries there that one needs to look into and stuff like that. Abhijit is part of that mystery as well. Because if such a strong kind of signification was given to a star, Abhijit was described as the king amongst the Nakshatras. So in fact, Krishna himself says to Arjuna in the battlefield, I am Abhijit amongst the stars. So that means that Abhijit was a very prominently placed kind of star, and definitely
why don't we use it? Mathematically, I understand why we don't use it, because we need 27 nakshatras, because 27 times 4 is 108. That's the time, that's the number of times we should do our mantras. And then 108 times 4 is 432. And that is the actual, correct resonance that music should have to resonate with our bodies, instead of 440, which is what most musicians tune to. But what's the mythological reason why we don't use Abhijit?
Right, yeah. So the mythological reason is actually because Krishna blew up that star. The star no longer exists there. So it's no longer emitting the rays out there. That's what it's saying. So it's like, so it's unclear as to whether you will find a supernova there and stuff like that, But I do think that that particular portion of the sky is still carrying energy, So there's something going on there. Capricorn definitely is carrying a lot of energy, But one thing I can say for sure is that the mythological reason why they don't use it is because that star no longer exists. Apparently, that star has blew up and
it's supernova. It poof.
Yeah.
Up.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's now associated with Vega. Oh, how interesting. I wonder what that star was. Well, you know who's getting ready to go supernova now is Betelgeuse.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Betelgeuse, there's a lot of news around that, right? So Betelgeuse getting supernova and stuff like that, yeah.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do with Ardra?
Yeah, at some point, whenever it's happening.
In Orion, right? And Orion has, so many stars. It's a star maker. It's a nebula. So they'll come up. We'll have to reassociate it when Betelgeuse is gone with, another one.
Yeah, that's a problem for the next generation of astrologers. Probably the next avatar, Krishna might point the way or something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much. I feel like, especially, because Moon is exalted in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. And, in September 19th, we have Rahu going into Taurus.
Yep.
And Ketu going into Scorpio. And so we're going to be revisiting these themes. And then pretty soon, Venus goes into Taurus at the end of this month. And then she's going to go retrograde in Taurus, and she's going to stay in the sign all the way up until like July 31st. So we're really going to feel a lot of these, these Venusian themes, but especially, having Moon exalted in Taurus, I feel like those people are going to be feeling it as well too. So even though we've got this crazy, Jupiter-Saturn conjunction this year, there's still quite a Venusian field that's going on this year. So
Yeah, definitely. I think Venus should be in Burnie soon, and then once it goes retrograde, it's going to be in Taurus. Then great, great for Venus and stuff like that. Well, I would actually recommend people the wealth ritual which I mentioned, the wealth tree ritual which I mentioned. It's great when Venus is in Taurus. For sure, it will like kind of last for a really long time. It's something I can recommend, especially if you have a yard, especially if if you have access to forest where that people are never going to come by.
I'll be doing this.
Yeah, so exactly that. So I can definitely recommend this as a ritual as well. I've seen the people who have those trees. I've seen them; they become extremely rich. Like these are the people who are able to sell like make $100,000 in like 3 weeks or so, literally. And I'm not
Wow.
even joking about that. Yeah.
Well, there's so many multimillionaires today, and that's the thing. Like, there really isn't any excuse now to have poverty consciousness.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, unless you're, living a very holy life, in a monastery somewhere. If you are poor, you are putting a burden on everybody around you, and you're just destroying your karma. So it really behooves people to, learn these rituals to increase abundance in their lives, because you're not just helping yourself, but you're helping the generations after you. You're leaving a legacy.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, there is blessing that comes with wealth for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation today.
Sure,
I
yeah.
really appreciate it. And, I know that, people know you through the Cosmic Insights app and the website. They can always contact you on there. And I know pretty soon you're going to have a website of your own as well. But until then, they can always contact, through me or through the Cosmic Insights, and that will get directed to you if anybody's interested in a reading with you, or they just want some tutoring and mentoring as well. I know that you've got that available. So I just want to put that out there and say thank you so much for everything today. And until next time, namaste.
Yep. Thank you, Katya. I've been planning to start a website at some point because most of the people have been trying to find me out and basically like give me help me out with my research and stuff like that. So they have been like really trying on that front. So yeah, I wanted to at some point create a website just to increase that kind of accessibility. Maybe be more present in social media or something like that, which I'm really reluctant, to be frank. But but yeah, of course they can always contact you or anything like that. That kind of thing is fine as well. But yeah, great, Katya. Great talking to you today.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yeah.